Hey everybody, welcome to our week 2 for our family Advent devotions this year. I'm excited you're here tonight. Let's start reading in Matthew 11, and we're going to start in verse 28. It says, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Think about sometimes how amazingly stressed out the world is that we live in today. And it's really interesting that being stressed out is not necessarily seen as a bad thing anymore. Depending on who you're talking to. Have you ever heard a conversation where two people are bragging to each other about how stressed out they are? And it's funny to listen to them, and one will start the conversation. They'll say, "I'm so stressed out. I have so much going on. I'm so crazy stressed right now. I couldn't even tell you how stressed out I am right now." And then they continue to tell you how stressed out they are. And they'll say, "I'm so stressed out." The person who will be listening to them will say, "Oh, that's nothing. This is how stressed out I am." And they will tell them that they're way more stressed out than they are. And it sometimes becomes a competition of who can be the busiest. And sometimes being stressed is seen as a qualifier for a good worker. And I think we've lost sight that God is a God of peace, and he gives us the ability to have incredible, unattainable peace. At least it's unattainable in our own selves without our God. Whenever you think about the December month and you think about Christmas coming up, if you ask anybody what they think of Christmas or how they feel about Christmas, they use two specific words. And the first word is stress, and the second word, I bet you know it, is busy. I bet you've never met anyone who says, "Oh, I'm so busy right now. I'm so stressed out. I'm so happy that Christmas is coming because it's just going to be a really relaxed month. There's nothing really on my calendar, and we're just going to spend December just hanging out, not doing a whole lot." Nobody ever says that. Everyone says that their Christmas, their December is always crazy busy. Normally November is. So I want us to take a look at that word, peace. And I think it's really important that we take a look at that word this month. With so much busyness, with so much on our calendars, I really want us to focus on that. When we think of peace in our world today, we normally think of tranquil. We normally think of the word tranquil. Sometimes we think of the word calm. Sometimes we think of not having a whole lot to do. We think of sometimes the end of a war. Right after the war will be what? Peace. And all those are good qualifiers, but the Bible sheds a lot of light on that word peace, and I think we really need to take into consideration, especially during important times of the year or in our lives. If you've been to church a whole lot in your life, and if you've been going to church for very long at all, I bet you could guess the Hebrew word, the Old Testament word for peace. And it is shalom. That's the Hebrew word for peace. And it's really interesting when we look at shalom. The whole Old Testament uses that word shalom. The most basic meaning of shalom, it does mean peace, and that's how we translate it, but what it really means is whole or complete. And to illustrate whole or complete, I have a Jenga set here, and you can see there are no holes in it at all. No holes in this Jenga set at all. It is complete. It is whole. There is not one part of it missing. So a good example of how the Old Testament uses shalom. David, before he becomes one of the greatest kings of Israel, he goes to his brothers in a field. And you see that what is going on around them is they are engaging in this war against the Philistines. And when David meets his brothers and greets them, he doesn't say, "Hey, how are you doing?" He doesn't say, "Hey, how's everything going?" He comes up to them and he says, "How is your shalom? Are you whole today? How is every bit of you?" It's not just asking about, "Hey, how are you doing today?" It's asking about your entire life. "Hey, are you whole today?" And it's really interesting to look at this illustration and to see when we lose part of our wholeness, maybe a relationship in our life is a little bit messy. Or maybe there's another aspect of our life that's really hurting. And what does that do? That hurts our wholeness. And that takes away from it, and it puts holes in different parts of our life. And every time something is hurting in us, then this is what we see that normally happens, is that we are hurting. And it takes away from our wholeness. Our life is filled with all these complex and important relationships. When one of those parts is missing or it's weak, it affects our shalom. But when your shalom is fixed, that means you're becoming more complete or more whole. When sin entered into this world, every person in the world that's ever been born is born with an incomplete shalom. The exact state of shalom is what God called the Israelites to bring to the entire world. They didn't do such a great job at that. The Israelites didn't. And in fact, failed many times in their own shalom. And bringing God's shalom to the nations was not a huge priority for them either. Then Isaiah comes to the scene and tells us a prince who is going to bring this shalom to the whole world. He would actually be called something very specific. But let's read, and this is from Isaiah, and it's from Isaiah 9, 5 through 6. And I bet you've heard this scripture before. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders, and his name shall be called, so these are his names, Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and Prince of what? Prince of Peace. In the New Testament, Jesus' birth is referred to as the arrival of the new peace. And they use this Greek word to mean this incredible whole peace. Jesus actually offered his peace to everyone in John 14. And he picked up that what Israel did so poorly. He picked that up and spread that peace and gave that peace to the nations. He restored that peace or that shalom or that wholeness that God has with us, his people. We are now called to do what Israel didn't, is to take that peace and take it to all the other people in the world. And this is what peace really is. This is what we are called to do with it. If God is a God of peace, then we are surely meant to be peace bringers, peace givers. Whenever we try to take care of our own self, whenever we say that we got it, we're going to call the shots, we're going to find our own peace, we take these parts out of our life. Over and over and over again, we do that. But the problem is, we are not the Prince of Peace. We are not creators of peace. In fact, we brought sin into this whole universe and wrecked peace for everything. So whenever we keep doing that without God, it does not normally end up very well, does it? And we keep going and going and going. And all of a sudden, at some points, when we try to get our own peace, it ends up kind of like that. We are not the ones who create peace, but we can bring peace into our own life by having this strong relationship with God and bringing that peace to others around us and everyone that God has called us to. My prayer is that if you are joining us tonight and you have never felt the peace of God, you don't know what that shalom means, I pray that you would reach out to the family that you're watching this with right now, or reach out to someone here at the church, and we would love to introduce you to what that peace means and what that looks like. So thank you again for joining us for week 2. Here are just some family questions that we would love for you and your family to discuss in the next 5 or 7 minutes.